Okay, there we go. There we go. So here we are. Okay, so well, I will make an introduction of the program, and then we can start off. So
Okay.
welcome, Becky Baldwin. We have an amazing musician on this new episode. In the Name of Music. This is what we call In the Name of Music. We have a place for musicians. We not only want to know about music, but we want to know the stories behind the music, and that is the protagonists themselves, the musicians. We are offering our time and all the energy we can offer, so we can share some stories and learn from it. So in this opportunity, we have Becky Baldwin, a sessionist, a musician. She's been in several bands, as far as I know, and we would love to hear from you, Becky. How are you today?
I'm doing good, thank you. It's great to meet you.
Well, thank you for your time. I know you are probably all the time in some new gig at all times, so I can only imagine you are very busy, aren't you?
Yeah. Recently, last few years after all the COVID lockdown and everything, since coming back, it's been a very intense schedule.
So did this give you opportunities after the COVID? That did new gigs started to come up after that, or was it harder compared to pre-COVID times?
I think it was definitely slower. Venues were starting their gigs again in a kind of staggered process, like some of the larger ones were, some of the smaller ones were, or vice versa. There were new blocks for particularly UK musicians because we had our government went through this thing called Brexit, where we left the European Union, and that meant that musicians who used to go into Europe to play now had limitations. And they're not very they're not super strict limitations. Like, you can still go over there and work for 90 days. I think it's 90 days of every year, so okay. It's okay, but like for a while it wasn't very clear that you could do that, so a lot of bands just weren't going anywhere near booking a UK band. So being a UK musician, it really messed up my kind of schedule, because people wouldn't really want to book you. So like, because of those two things together, it was a little bit slow coming back, but I try and find as many opportunities to play as possible, and once you do get back into the swing of it, then the gigs just keep coming.
I see. Well, that's amazing news. Also, information that not everyone might know. So it's good that you're sharing this with us. Some people might still think, because there is a lot of confusion, not just in UK, but ever since COVID, people are a little afraid, like, what are the rules right now? How are the policies in this country or another? So thank you for sharing that, telling us that, yes, the UK allows you, there is some permissions there. It's a 90 days, as you said. So that's great. Thanks for the update on that. I'm sure many people are struggling nonetheless, but it's good that this is an example of, when you have the talent, you have the willingness to create music, there is nothing stopping you, it seems. You are an example of that.
I try to encourage people.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, as far as you're present, I know you are currently touring, or am I correct on this? You are touring with Fury band, correct? And
yes.
You've been around with them anyways for some years. You joined before this band.
Yeah, so I joined Fury at the end of 2017. So I've been touring with them since then. Like, it was quite slow for the first few years, not very many shows, but then we released a couple of albums like during the lockdowns, and it's picked up quite a lot. So we have a weekend off from the Fury tour this weekend. But I'll be back to it next weekend. Tonight, I'm just filling in for a Metallica tribute band. I still kind of, I like to
kind
all
of over the place,
spread out and do all different things.
Actually, I thought you were going to meet at some Fury gig, because I knew that they had some events taking place, but this is another band.
Yes,
I see. Wow, that shows a lot about your skill. It seems that you are very, you are called by all musicians. It seems like they really need you, and it's not easy to find a bass player. I suppose it's not that easy as finding maybe a singer, that there are many singers, but not everybody can play a good bass and be on a band. So it's wonderful that you can join in. And I was wondering about your experience back to Fury band. Do you always know these people? Do you guys grow up together?
No, that was I met them just through the kind of local metal scene. I had a band previously, and Fury supported, and that's how I met the guys. And then again, I was filling in for their bass player because their bass player was also busy with another show, and they needed someone for this tour that they did in back in 2017. So I filled in, covered that month's tour. And then a few months later, the bass player decided to move on, and they offered me the position. And because I got on with them so well on that tour, I decided I'd stick around because I really enjoyed the music. And this has kind of been a common theme. Yeah, like, you know, you fill in for a couple of shows. You're there for them in their hour of need, like when they're in a kind of crisis, like, we need a bass player. And then something happens and you end up being a permanent member. So that's
wow. What an interesting story you are telling us. So you are basically saying that, you know, at any middle crisis situation, the band is requesting people. That's when they need you. So you are very requested. Now my question would be, are you curious to? I mean, would you be interested to be a permanent member in one specific band, or do you like this idea of, you know, being there when they need you?
I think it would make my life a lot simpler to just be in one particular band, and that is kind of what I want one day. I think at the moment, because the bands that I play in, they're quite small. Like, we just tour the UK and a little bit in Europe. We're not like an international band. We don't have a label. We don't have like a manager or anything fancy. We're doing everything ourselves. So in that situation, it makes more sense for me to branch out and play with other bands, because it's not a full-time job yet. It's not like I can't just rely on that one band. And the opportunities that I get through playing with other bands means that I can help my own band, because I do the bookings for Fury most of the time. If I'm playing with another band, I'm filling in for them, and we go to a different venue, we meet different people. These are the things that I can find a way to network and speak to them, and then be like, hey, like, I've got another band, would you be interested in booking us? So that so far in my career has been a consistent theme. I've always done that sort of thing, playing in different bands and using each band's contact to kind of help each other and grow very slowly, organically, but just through all these connections. But, you know, eventually, if we can get to a point where, you know, we're signed, we've got like someone else to deal with all of this managerial stuff, booking and everything, then I'd like to be able to just focus on playing bass for one band and give it my all. That would be the dream, really.
I see. Well, you are definitely growing yourself this big portfolio as a musician. Like, you've been all over. I also know, which is, I mean, not to mention, right? I mean, you've been with Mercyful Fate on touring as well. Such an iconic band, and that's impressive. Of course, this is one of those reasons I knew about you, because you've been a spotlight there as a bass player in the whole touring, a North American tour, I think it was. It was last year. And well, that just says a lot about you, how people can request you and they look after you. But I can also see, as you were saying, right? I mean, this is an advantage of, you know, being out there, growing your networks and all. But then the downside of it is that it's good at some point to be in some band. I suppose it must be hard, or is it too hard to find a manager to get yourself together in some way?
Yeah, it is quite hard to find the right person to trust. I think there's a lot of people who exploit small bands. Like, they will find a way to give them a really bad deal. And so you need your band to be in a position where you can be very choosy about your manager before you can then get the manager who's then going to take you to the next level. So it's almost like it's sometimes like you already get to the point where you don't need a manager, and then you can get the manager, or, you know, that kind of thing. So it's I don't know, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, the thin line between needing the people to help you out, but then growing the trust, I suppose, all this, and also having the same ideals, right? Because sometimes with the music, right, you want to keep your essence of musician, or so I heard, that sometimes you have this preference on how you want to make the music, but the manager might have a different views, and that might be a little challenging, I suppose, when it comes to making a business and all also. But I also know that you're also a teacher, right? I mean, you also teach music, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I've been teaching for a long time, but yeah, now it's not as much as I used to because I'm more busy with gigs than I have been before. But yeah, I still keep up with it a little bit.
I was wondering if that can help you to, I mean, is this how you can make a living out of it? Being a teacher and then keeping a band? Is it doable? Because some people might be surprised, you know, is it possible to do all this, you know?
Yeah, I think having teaching was the main thing that kind of carried me through my music career in a way. So I could still teach music during the week. And that kind of kept me going because I was only gigging at the weekends at the time and there wasn't very much money in it. Whereas teaching, you know, you can do it through the week. It's very flexible. Like I teach like privately. So most of my students are quite easy to move around should I need to if I'm going on tour. So yeah, like the teaching kind of props up the rest of the music career until the kind of gigs that you want are starting to happen. Like for example, the Mercyful Fate tour, I had to stop teaching for a couple of months to really prepare and go away to do that. But when I come back, my students are like, come on, let's come back to a lesson. I want to learn some Mercyful Fate stuff, you know?
That I'm sure. Well, you can keep them excited with that. Just coming back. I mean, having a teacher that goes on a tour and from all these big gigs, it definitely encourages you to want to keep learning for the learning experience. And
yeah, like they think it's quite cool to have a teacher who's really kind of going out and doing it. It kind of makes a bit of a difference compared to some like dusty old guy in a local guitar store. Like, no offense to those people, but yeah.
Well, you are living the dream. Would you consider yourself that you are living the dream like so many people would want? I mean, you see where I'm going? Like, you know, all these experiences, what do they mean to you? How does it feel, you know, being out there, all these many stages that you've been at, different tours, different musicians? Is that living the dream?
Yeah, I think definitely on the Mercyful Fate tour around the US, that was definitely living the dream. Like, you know, that kind of the treatment and the kind of shows we were playing and, you know, being looked after so well by all their management and stuff. That felt like, okay, yeah, this is it. I've made it. This is the dream.
Have you always wanted to get to go this far? I mean, have you planned this for a long time, or did it happen kind of spontaneous?
It's been what I've wanted to do for a really long time. So you know, it was a complete surprise to me when Mercyful Fate asked me to join them on the tour, but it was something I'd always hoped would happen. Yeah, so like that really felt like the dreams come true, and like now I'm back home, like just playing with my bands and just they're much smaller gigs. We're kind of sending out the CDs ourselves and everything is very DIY, so it doesn't feel as much like the dream. But then, you know, I compare it to the kind of work I used to do. I used to like just work in a factory, and I've done like bar jobs and all kinds of really like soul destroying, boring jobs that I hated. And I'm just glad I get I'm so glad I get to do something that I really like. And and you know, I work with loads of different people, which is nice. There's no, as you say about the routine, you're not stuck in doing the same thing every day. It's always like traveling and exploring new things.
Yeah, that's what I would call living the dream. I mean, you're able to first I know you might have some kind of there's always someone up there, you know, above you and so forth. But in some kind of way, I see how you are very independent. You have your own vision as musician. As far as your career, I can see you like you like this band. You went with that band. You were touring with the band. So that gives you a lot of independence and gives you the opportunity to, you know, to project what things you want to enjoy, what things you want to experience. So for many people out there and listening out there, I'm sure that is like a dream coming true. And I was just wondering if this is something that, you know, have you always been thinking ever since you were a child, perhaps, or was the music something that came along in your life later on in life?
I think, yeah, as a kind of young teenager, kind of an older child, I started becoming more interested in music. I got my my bass guitar on my 13th birthday. So it was, you know, when I was about 12, I started being really
Oh, okay.
interested in music. And once I started playing bass, I was like totally hooked, and it was all I wanted to do.
Was
When I was
always
very
the
young,
bass? Was always the bass your instrument of choice?
yeah, I played the piano a little bit
Uh-huh.
as when I was quite young, and I would give up all the time. I'd be playing
Oh,
it for a few months, and I'd be like, "Oh no, this sucks," and then I'd stop, and then I'd come back to it, and I'd stop. So I didn't get very good. But something completely changed when I got a bass guitar. I was like, you know, the kind of obsession didn't ever burn out. It was just always wanting to play more and more and more. And the more I discovered like lots of different music that I liked, like got deeper into the kind of rabbit hole of heavy metal, then
yeah.
I just, you know, it just made me even more excited about it, and excited about doing it as a career.